Hello and welcome back to the No Flipping Excuses channel. My name is Michael Bredthauer, and I am very excited today. We are bringing on a very special guest. This is somebody who we've brought on in the past, a long time ago, about 3 years ago. He actually reminded me before we got started today, 3 years ago, and things have changed drastically, not just for us, but for him. I've been watching his feed on Facebook and kind of following a little bit. He's a good friend of mine, so I like to kind of check in on things, and he's been doing fantastic, so we wanted to bring him back. He's got some awesome tips and tricks he can drop. We're going to pick his brain a little bit and get some information, but David, welcome back, man. It's a pleasure to have you on the show again. How are you doing?
Michael, it's so good to be here, man. I'm doing great.
Good, good.
Actually, I'm the happiest that I've ever been. I can confidently say that.
Okay, tell me a little bit more. Why are you the happiest you've ever been at this point?
Well, before I used to be living this terrible life before I got into real estate investing, and I was working so much and not making that much money. I slept with my computer under my pillow because I was the software developer and the tech support for this company that would have bugs pop up in the middle of the night. I'd have to take the call, fix it. And I even missed my best friend's wedding reception because I had to go fix some bug at this software I was using. But ever since I got into real estate investing, I've got so much more freedom with my time and I can create my own schedule. And to me, just being in control makes me happy.
Yes, absolutely. Freedom is, I think, the reason a lot of folks are tuning into the show, why they get into real estate is they want to create that freedom. It's funny. I think 3 years ago, in fact, you and I had talked early on about some of those developer issues and woes you were coming through and always, all odds of the night. I don't remember this story specifically, but I kind of, when you said it triggered some of those conversations we had. Now, fast forward 3 years, you've got the freedom you've been looking for. You've traveled, you've moved around a bit, and you've done quite a bit. You've built your company up to something really fantastic, which is awesome. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Before we get to that, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about your background and where you were, because I know we dived a little bit about where you were before you got started in real estate and how you got into it exactly.
100%, man. It started way back in high school where I saw some kids had these really nice sports cars and I had a car. It was great. Super thankful I had it. But I was like, how do they get to drive these really nice cars? Like, what are their parents doing and thinking that they're able to buy that for their kids that my parents weren't willing to do or weren't wanting to do, or maybe didn't have the capability of. And so I just went searching. I was like, whatever the reason is, I know there's an opportunity out there to have cool stuff. And I'll be very honest, Mike, I'm just a materialistic guy. And that was definitely a big motivator for me. I really liked cars, or I wanted to have a house with a pool. And so I started out reading the 4-Hour Work Week, learned about investing, and then eventually transitioned. I thought I was so smart investing in stocks until the stock market went down. And then I found out, well, if you buy a rental property correctly and you manage it well, that thing will cash flow every single month. And that would give me the early retirement that I was hoping for. And so it took a little bit. It definitely took some time, but I'm happy to say that's definitely served me well.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you about that, the whole, materialistic thing. You almost said it with a little bit of shame, but, at the same time, a little bit of pride. And I think we should, the desire to want something materialistic as a motivator to create a business. Sure. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, look where you're at right now. There's nothing that bad that happened because that's why you wanted to become successful, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you don't want to value, materialistic things over people or things that are more important for you. But I mean, I already had people in my life, so I was ready to get the next thing that I wanted to enjoy, which was a car.
Yeah. And we talked about that a little bit before we got started. You started racing, right?
Oh yeah. Actually, dude, I just bought this, $4,000 Miata and I race it against other $4,000 Miatas twice a month at the same racetrack. So it's all skill-based because you can't spend money to make your car faster. Everybody has the same exact car. And that's just been so fun to learn how to go faster.
That's awesome. And again, when it comes to, what we're talking about here, real estate and development and where you were and where you started, obviously you didn't get the Miata and jump on the track and was the best race car driver out there. You were telling me that you had a coach, he kind of taught you how to drive. I assume now that you're doing much better than when you first started.
Oh yeah, man. I started in the back of the pack, started 30th, and now I'm finishing 15th. So I've improved my skills quite a bit.
50%, right? Isn't that what that's at? Okay, that's an excellent metric. So, and I want to bring up what you talked about with the market, because we're going to talk about in that little bit, what your thoughts on the current market are and how is that affecting real estate. But I do want to get back to you getting started in real estate and how things got started and how you got to where you are right now. When you got started, what would you say was probably your favorite lead source, or when you thought real estate, oh man, this is what I'm going to get going after?
Well, yeah. So, okay, first of all, I discovered that real estate investing can give me more predictable, consistent results to help me retire earlier, quit my 9 to 5 job. Well, I was really pumped until I looked on the market for properties that I thought would cash flow. So whatever they were listing it at with a realtor, I'd do that. And then I would say, let me flip the Zillow thing to like houses for rent in this area. And the mortgage estimate was always like close to the rent estimate. And I was like, this isn't going to make sense. This is not going to be a good investment. I'm going to actually potentially lose money every single month. Sure. Why isn't this possible anymore? And I even worked with somebody, the guy who had like 5 rental properties that I worked for. He even said, well, I bought mine in 2008. You know, I don't know if you could find good deals now. And so I was really discouraged until I actually went to a real estate investor meetup that Jason Lucchese actually hosted. And then there I learned, no, there's people doing real estate investing all the time. They're just not looking at what's for sale on the market. They're actually going off market. And I learned there, like 80% of the people who are there, they're finding their first deals by doing what's called driving for dollars, looking for rundown properties and getting in touch with the owner, asking if they want an offer, and then getting it under contract. So that's exactly what I set out and started doing.
I love that you brought up the driving for dollars, because in our show, for the listeners out there, and let me ask you right now, make sure, before I let Dave talk about this, because I'm about to ask David about something really special that he's developed based on driving for dollars, okay? And if you've followed our previous episodes, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Get notifications for this, because we've talked about this lead source a lot. It is one of our favorite lead sources out there. Palliser all the time says it's one of those lead sources you can't even go out there and buy. It's a list source that you cultivate, and it is extremely powerful. And David, I did want to ask you about that sign above your head and let the listeners know a little bit about Deal Machine. I think this lead source kind of developed out of Deal Machine, developed out of this lead source. Am I right?
Well, here's the thing. We could definitely talk about Deal Machine. Here's why I made it. So I was looking for rundown houses, and I was writing down the addresses on a piece of paper. I was doing that for about a month, because I had found about 40 rundown houses after work, and I didn't send out any communication though. And that was my actual holdup, but I didn't realize it until I found a house that was being renovated that I knew I drove by a month ago. And then I looked up who owned it, and sure enough, somebody just bought it. And I thought it was a great price for something I could have used as my first deal. So I was like, ooh, my stomach just like dropped. And I realized, okay, I've got to start following up, but I can't send like one postcard at a time from a company, because they have these minimum orders of like 200 pieces at a time. I only have found 40 properties so far. So what I did was I basically made this widget on my phone that would let me pin the house, look up who owns it, send a piece of mail one at a time, and get that in the mail immediately as soon as I found a house. And that was something I made for myself just to get over the issue of, oh, I need to follow up. I'm forgetting to follow up, and I don't have enough properties to follow up right away, which I feel like is important now that I had lost that deal. So that's actually what became the Deal Machine app, was that widget I made for my phone that helps people do what they were already doing, which is driving for dollars, just easier.
Yeah, and let's talk about that a little bit, because you had mentioned that you were driving around, and everybody drives everywhere. I mean, you go anywhere, you're driving somewhere, or you're walking somewhere, and you're passing houses. And like you said, you saw this house and you thought it might have been a good investment for you. I've got one down the road. It was a pre-foreclosure that my wife, every time we drive by it, she reminds me, oh, we could have had that house, remember? So that's a pain that you feel as an investor when you drive by a lost opportunity, right? And then the follow-up. The follow-up is probably a new investor's, biggest, I want to call it, what does Jason call it? He calls it his, he's got a special Palliserism for it. Anyways, it's your biggest heartache, not doing proper follow-up. And so David, having a tool and whatnot and creating a solution for his own challenge, saying, hey, I'm not following up with folks is problem number one. Problem number two is, I'm driving by these houses every single day and I'm passing good opportunities. And it's validated by the fact that another investor went in and purchased it and turned it into a cash flowing asset that is now paying somebody else instead of David. So your favorite lead source is driving for dollars. And it sounds like why is because it is not only
it's my favorite lead source just because that's what everybody's recommending to do for a beginner. Like, I don't really want to say the only reason I picked it is because that's what the advice was. That's what everyone was saying you should do for your first few deals. And then I ended up building this tool that helped people drive for dollars easier. And so then that just became a tool that other people could use. I mean, I didn't even have it on the App Store at first. The only reason why I put it on the App Store is because there was also another meetup in town run by Brittany Wicks. And she was actually an acquisitions person for a turnkey rental property company.
Okay.
And she would come to buy 30 properties per month. And that blew my mind. I was like, what the heck? 30 per month? It's so many properties. How in the heck are you going to buy 30 properties per month? But she did. And she was like, well, I'll spend $1,000 to try any new marketing. And I showed her the app I made, and she's like, yeah, I would definitely, send $1,000 worth of mail through that. How do I get it on my phone? And I was like, dude, I didn't even try to sell this thing, and she wants to use it. So I put it on the App Store and then set up my payment processor so I could actually take the payment. And then other people started to find it slowly, from there. And that's why Deal Machine became a business.
Yeah, and that's great. And the one thing I love about that the most is that it's a tool that, you developed out of your own need, and it solved that need. And all of a sudden other people started seeing, because they're, everybody's told driving for dollars. We tell everybody, hey, driving for dollars is probably one of the best lead sources that you can get. You'll find properties that aren't on any lists that are just sitting there and waiting for an investor to reach out and contact that person. So
right.
Yeah, go ahead. No, please.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect beginner strategy too, because a lot of people that have a lot of money, they're not gonna drive for dollars, right? Because driving for dollars is a little bit time intensive. It costs way less money because people aren't willing to go drive around and look for these houses. They're spending lots of money to send mass mailings to these lists, which works well as well. But if you've got a limited budget, you actually are gonna find a deal by driving for dollars a lot cheaper, because the list is unique to you. You can't buy a list of rundown properties. And the people who are doing real volume, they're not driving around for dollars, right? They're just spending money sending more mail because they can afford to do so. So I think that's why it's a great beginner strategy.
Sure. Hey, and let's talk about investors who are closing a lot of deals and still implement the driving for dollar strategy, because even though they're still doing this strategy, they are themselves not going out and driving around, right? They have a team of folks, right? Let's talk a little bit about how you scaled up with your driving for dollars, because it's still a great lead source for you.
Yeah. So one thing that I've done is I've actually hired a driver. I no longer even live in Indianapolis, but I have a driver. His name's Anthony Molina. He's been with me for 3 years, Michael.
Oh, nice.
Best driver I could have ever hoped for. And so I pay him $20 an hour to drive his own car around, and he's looking for properties that look run down or something new has happened, like a tree fell, nobody cleaned it up. So he's always looking for new properties that look run down and adding them to my lead list so I can send marketing to those properties. Nice. So I pay him, like I said, $20 an hour. He handles gas. He drives his own car. And so it's still a very good lead source for me because I get that niche list that I can't just buy somewhere.
Right. And he's still here in Indiana. So you're virtually closing on deals in Indiana while living in Austin, Texas.
I'm proud to say I just bought one a couple weeks ago.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. Now let me ask you this. Have expanded that driving for dollars still in Indiana, but now in the Austin, Texas market?
Only Indianapolis, because like a wholesaler, I'm driving for dollars and I'm actually looking for the very best off-market deals. But then I want to close on them myself, because my goal is to get to more rental properties. So I've got 10 now, and I want to get more rental properties. And here's why. That's how I started. I knew the rental income was going to let me retire early and have that passive income. When Deal Machine took off, I just stopped buying rentals because Deal Machine was a much bigger opportunity. But fast forward 3 years since I talked to you last, just holding those rental properties, right? They brought in $60,000 a year net, which is really nice. That was my salary when I started, right? So I get that now net, right?
Sure.
After all expenses. But I also appreciated nearly $1 million in that time. And I was like, dude, I didn't even do anything. I wish I had 5 more properties, because then I'd have $5 million of equity gained. And I could buy that Ferrari F40 that I've always wanted. But now I got to wait. And I'm buying properties again, though, because I learned my lesson, right? You never hear anyone say, oh, I wish I didn't keep more deals. Like, everybody would always look back and say, oh, I wish I would have kept a lot more deals. And so I've learned that lesson too. And now I'm going hard to go get more properties.
Right. And it proves the point that, you should have multiple income streams. Even though you can have one really powerful lead source, which we're talking about driving for dollars right now, you should also have multiple lead sources, which if you followed us in our channel, make sure, again, like, comment, subscribe, check out some of the other strategies so you can add those in there. But you've got your business income that's coming in there. You have the rental income, and you're still growing them both. And I'm assuming still adding in additional lead sources with your business just to pull in more rental properties.
I'm just driving for dollars right now. That's it.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
doing direct mail, driving for dollars. The only other thing that I've tried doing is making offers on properties that are old expired listings. But I have not done a deal yet, and I've made 250 offers. Just giving lower offers, right, on these old listings. But I'm not done trying yet. I'm going to keep trying that too. But those are really the only two things that I'm doing.
Hey, I appreciate the honesty on that one, because sometimes you just got to keep going and going and refine that process. I assume, just like with driving for dollars, you'll find the solution to that challenge and come up with that as well. Let's shift gears a little bit, because I know you're buying rental properties and you're building up your portfolio here in Indiana, which I love Indiana. It's a great market.
Me too.
I'm glad you do. And I know we lost you to Austin, Texas, but it sounds like your business is still holding roots here in Indy, so that's good.
Yeah.
Let's get your thoughts on the current market at that. Now, we're talking about things have been shifting. We don't want to talk about politics and get all political on this one, but things are changing. The president's, coming towards the end of his term. Things have not been so great during his term. They're talking re-election. Housing has kind of come to a slowdown. Property owners are still holding out for that top dollar, offer, but they're coming farther and fewer between. Interest rates are going up. So kind of tell me your thoughts on the current market, especially as a property owner and a rental portfolio owner.
Yeah. I mean, I just bought one 2 weeks ago. I used a loan that was 6.5%, and it still cash flows over $600 per month. But the difference between the mortgage payment, taxes, and insurance,
Okay.
and then what I can charge for rent, it meets the 1%. Like I'm super pumped about it. I think that the types of problems we solve as real estate investors, you might think there's all these things stacked against you. Like when I was told by my, past boss that, he got all his deals in 2008. Not sure I could get any now. I mean, if I would have stopped there, I would have never been in real estate. So
Sure.
I'm really glad that I found another solution. And I think the types of problems we solve as real estate investors occur in any market. So it doesn't matter if there's a lot of inventory or not. Somebody's getting foreclosed on. I mean, they're going to need to do something with their property, right? Or if somebody passes away and that property is going to probate, that's going to happen. That's going to happen no matter what the interest rates are, and however that's affecting the inventory and how many properties are listed for sale. As a wholesaler, you may notice that some of the hedge fund and big buyers may pull back. But if you're finding a deal from somebody that's truly having a problem, you'll be able to find somebody that would like to buy that property. I'm one of them. And please send it to me, Lecko on Instagram if you find a property in Indianapolis.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, as real estate investors, our job is to shift gears as the market shifts, and like you said, if you had stopped at, oh, well, if you build a time machine and you go back 20 years, you can buy these properties and build a cash flowing asset for yourself. If you had stopped at that and be like, well, I'm not, Doc, I don't have a time, DeLorean with a flux capacitor built into it, and that's not going to happen. I might as well do something else. Then you wouldn't have had the portfolio you have now and the experience and success. And it's just like that with everything else and every other strategy. As the market shifts, it's just a matter of, okay, well, maybe, listings and whatnot is not the best strategy. Or maybe I just got to shift gears in how I approach a listing because the market's shifting. I got to start targeting people who are facing, foreclosures, tax sales. Maybe they have code violations, or maybe their houses, I'm just driving by and I see their house is the only one falling apart. And in a neighborhood of houses that look nice, clearly something is not, right for them. They need some assistance of some capacity, because they would otherwise pay to fix up their house, because I'm sure their neighbors are getting on them. They're probably, if they're in a subdivision, maybe getting the HOA on them. You never know what it is. So you're just about shifting gears and changing strategy. So I'm glad you brought that up, David, and not, a lot of investors get scared, especially, and same thing with driving for dollars. Everyone's told, go driving for dollars, go driving for dollars. And then they go do it a couple of times and they get, scared, or they don't see the results, right? I mean, talk about your first experiences driving for dollars, if you don't mind, really quick.
Yeah. So the first house I actually got, first of all, I was like scared to make an off-market offer because I had never closed on a real estate property before.
Okay.
And with the way I think, I was like, I feel uncomfortable talking to you because I don't even know how this is going to end up. So what I did was I pushed pause, and then I used the W-2 income I had to buy a house, low down payment, $7,000 down, $190,000 house, 3-bed, 2-bath, but the basement was converted into 2 more bedrooms. So I lived in one, rented out 3, kept the 4th, the last one just open, because there's a lot of people in an 1,800 square foot house. And then I knew how the transaction went. I was like, okay, I know what happens at a title company now. And I've also reduced my living expenses to 0. I'm going to go back to looking for off-market deals. And so I got postcards sending out once a month to these rundown houses that I found. And 7 months later, this guy calls me back. 7 months. How many people even try this for 7 months, right? So a lot of people just give up too soon. And right. They've not added enough properties and they've not put in enough time. So just remember, it took 7 months, okay? And I had found like probably 300 rundown houses. So what he said was he wants an offer on his house. I went down, took pictures, came back, made him an offer, and he accepted it. It was the easiest thing ever because he literally wanted to get rid of it. He had water running in his bathtub so it wouldn't freeze. He had a tarp on his roof. He had surgery, so he couldn't cut his grass. Like that was the final straw, no pun intended. And so, I mean, he just wanted to get rid of it. He thought I was going to demolish it. It was in such bad shape. It wasn't even an argument. It wasn't a negotiation. I just said, this is the best I can do. And it was the easiest thing ever, Michael. And that's how I knew he was a true motivated seller. Since then, you know, I've kind of had tire kickers, but I realized I just need to find more people. So I find somebody like him that just really wants to get rid of their property.
Right. And you again, you hit the nail on the head with the follow-up. It took 7 months and some investors, what is it? I think Ross Perot or somebody quoted, I'll put in the comments if I mess this up, that most people quit within a few inches of success. You know, there's that meme out there. They got a guy above digging for diamonds and he's, you know, chugging away. He's walking away with a little tiny diamond because he thinks he hit gold. But behind that was this huge, you know, plethora. And the guy below him, he's just digging because he's about to hit the huge diamond well. And most people quit before they get to that huge cavern of diamonds. So, and that's the other thing. You brought that up when it comes to getting started and
people quit. So a lot of times, I mean, I'm in a unique position where I get to hear a lot of people who are just getting started because a lot of people use Deal Machine for driving for dollars, even though it has, you know, a list builder and can help you with comps and even an AI assistant now to help you figure out how to negotiate and value a property. Most people will say that are quitting, it doesn't work for them in their market, but I'll see their account. They've added 20 properties. Michael, it takes more than 20 properties. This is my public service announcement. Talk to somebody in your market who's successful, know how many properties they have to add, how many, you know, postcards they have to send out, and double it because you're going to need to make up for your lack of skill. And don't quit until you've done that.
Sure. And let's talk about that. Let's say, you know, you do have somebody that's coming to you, David. They say, hey, you know what? I do want to use Deal Machine because I listen to this podcast and I do want to do driving for dollars. But like you, I'm terrible at follow-up and I don't want to send mass mailings. I don't want to be like that person you told me about who has Deal Machine and is unsuccessful with it. And you're looking at them, well, it's because you're not using it properly. What would you say to somebody that's like, hey, you know what? I want to do this the right way. I want to do driving for dollars. I want to do it right now. And I would love to use a tool like Deal Machine. How would something like that help me? And how would I be successful doing it the right way?
All you have to do is add properties and send mail. That's it. Or if you're not going to send mail, talk to them via door knocking or send text messages or cold call. Michael, I personally would rather just talk to people who are responding to my mail. I just know that in my personality. But adding distressed properties and communicating enough times. That's it. You don't have to use Deal Machine at all, but it's just designed to make what you're doing easier, right? So you can, instead of writing down the address, pin the house, instead of looking it up on the county website, it tells you, and instead of putting together a postcard yourself or using a service, it sends it out immediately and then will automatically repeat it every 21 days. So you don't have to. So the tool just makes what you'd already have to do easier. Okay. And that's honestly it. I could talk about the AI assistant. I could talk about running the comps, and we can. But to be honest, you just have to focus on those two things, and that's how you start getting successful because you don't have to worry about things that aren't in your lap yet, right? Like you don't have to worry about how do I value this property if you haven't even found one and talk to the owner yet, right? Like you don't need to know every single step of the way. Just get started with those first two things.
Sure. Hey, there you got it. There you have it, folks. You get out there, start driving around, just start writing down addresses and just start reaching out to folks. Come up with a simple template. We'll put some examples. We have plenty of in our previous episodes. Go back through and listen. We'll put some links below to some of those episodes, but just go back out there and start sending them letters. It's more of a numbers game than anything. If you just reach out to 20 people, you're going to get the results of not doing very much work. But if you reach out to, 120 people or 220 people over a period of a very short period of time, you're going to have people, like David said, that call you with a real motivation. Hey, my bathtub is overflowing because if I shut it off, the pipes will freeze. And, I got a tarp on my roof. So every time it rains, water's getting in. And when it's cold out, it's cold in my house. And, now my grass is overgrown and I'm getting code violations and I can't get out there and mow it. And it's just too much. It's just too much. You're going to find that person with that motivation. And they're pretty easy to spot, right? A house with a tarp on the roof and long grass is not that hard to spot. So appreciate that tip, David. It's very helpful to folks out there who want to get started with driving for dollars, especially since we've hammered it several times in several episodes that it is one of the top performing lead sources, especially when it comes to return on your investment. Let's talk about this one thing, because you'd mentioned a couple of books before that you'd read that kind of helped you with your mindset, maybe getting your business going. 4-Hour Work Week was one of the examples that you had given. What would you say is probably your favorite book? I know that's a hard question to answer. One of your favorite books.
Yeah, these are all the books I read last year. Okay. And if it's for somebody just getting started in real estate investing, that would be different than what my personal favorite book is. Okay. But my favorite book was actually this book called Humor Seriously. It's like why you should use humor in work, maybe even when you're talking with a seller. As long as it's not inappropriate, it doesn't matter if it's funny, but it makes people like you more, see you as more credible. And that motivated me just to tell a lot more jokes, especially with my team. So that's definitely my favorite book. But if I had to recommend a book for somebody who is like just getting started, the Rich Dad Poor Dad is a must read. You gotta read that, man. That's gonna drive your inspiration. It's like it's done so many before. So those would be my two mentions.
Sure. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, always a good book, always a great recommendation. You said humor. What was that again? Humor what?
Humor Seriously.
Humor Seriously. I like that. I'm with that as well. One of my favorite memories is when I had gotten out of the military, and one of the guys, they were giving my plaque, and they were like, you know what, you could always count on Bredthauer for a laugh. And this is one of the guys I deployed with. And that always stuck with me, because I always thought, hey, as long as you can make a terrible situation as light as possible, maybe not, like you said, say anything inappropriate, but, make it a happy situation, or at least let the other person know, hey, I'm just a human like you, and I like to laugh just like you, then things can go by a lot smoother. That's awesome, David. And David, we really appreciate the time you took on this show today to tell us a little bit about your favorite lead source, driving for dollars. Clearly, we've known that about you for a while, but I'm glad you took the time to tell our community and let the community know that driving for dollars it starts the same way for pretty much everybody. Nobody goes out there with a huge budget and closes hundreds of deals within their first month. A lot of people ask, how quickly could I close a deal by driving for dollars? And we say, you got to give it a little bit of time. It takes 5 to 6 conversations with somebody before they'll even talk to you about selling their house. But when it does come to that conversation, when it does come to that point, when you've done the follow-up right, when you've sent them a letter, you've piqued their interest, they reach out to you, hey, I'm curious about what you can do for me, what are you offering here? And then you just continue following up with them, not necessarily convincing them to sell their house, but just, hey, my name is David, my name is Mike, I'm here with No Flipping Excuses, or whatever your company name is, and it looks like maybe your grass is getting a little bit tall. Is there anybody maybe I can come by and cut your lawn for you? Have you thought about selling your house? My neighbor, my boss has been having me out here looking at some houses for sale. This looks like a nice street to buy a few houses on. I've talked to a few of the neighbors. Do you or anybody else might be looking to sell?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, offering to cut their lawn, all that kind of stuff. So David, we really appreciate that and the time you took today.
Wait, Michael, I have something I wanted to offer your listeners. Is that okay?
Okay, I'm sorry, David. I got really excited. Yes, please take it away.
All right, cool. Yeah, so for the listeners of the No Flipping Exclusive channel, I actually wanted to give you guys like 200 skip traces, which is to get the phone number of the person that you found rundown houses from, or 50 postcards. And we've put together a URL. I think it's noflippingexcuses.com/DM. Is that correct?
Let me double check. noflippingexcuses.com/DM. Yeah, for Deal Machine.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So you guys can get 7 days free access to the app, plus 200 skip traces or 50 free postcards that you can send to property owners. And so that's going to be available at the URL. And if you guys want to connect, you got any questions, I'm Lecko on Instagram. I've also been this year interviewing people who've done their first few deals, driving for dollars, with the Deal Machine Real Estate Investing podcast. And that's on Apple. Really have enjoyed that. And it's been so fun to see people that are actually doing this, having success stories. And I know it could inspire somebody listening to do the same.
Absolutely. Hey, David, that's awesome, man. So 200 skip traces or 50 postcards.
Right.
And they get free access for a week to the Deal Machine app.
That's right.
Oh, okay. Make sure you guys do that. Go right now. David, I appreciate you doing this. This is awesome. Go right now, noflippingexcuses.com/DM. David's going to give you free access to the Deal Machine app for 1 week, and he's going to give you either 200 skip traces or up to 50 postcards. Now, if you were paying attention at all to this episode, you know that you need to take those 50 postcards, drive around immediately in that week, and send them off. And then maybe send off a few more. That would be my suggestion, but at least send off those 50. And then maybe go back and contact Lecko at Instagram and say thank you. All right, say thank you. Check out his podcast. Watch how he talks about Deal Machine. Watch how he talks about using Driving for Dollars to grow his own real estate rental portfolio. And really pay attention to the subtle nuances and how he uses not just the strategy, but also the platform. So when you take advantage of his offer to get either 200 skip traces or 50 postcards sent out, that you do it the right way, that you can see the results that you want to see with Driving for Dollars. David, as you said, man, it's a very powerful strategy. And not only do I appreciate you taking the time to tell us a little bit about how you got started in real estate using Driving for Dollars, some of the woes and pains that you had to overcome, and maybe giving that same warning to investors. Hey, don't give up right away. Don't send out 20 postcards and give up. I'm going to give you 50. I'm going to give you 50 right now, just so you send more than the 20, and don't give up. Do the follow-up. So that is awesome. We really appreciate that. If you have any questions at all, please, as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you also hit that notification bell, because if you had missed this episode, you would have missed an incredible offer to use Deal Machine and send out 50 postcards, which I assume they can do today, David, as soon as they do that.
You do it right now. Absolutely.
You have no excuses. If you have anywhere to go today, make sure you download the app first and then snap a few houses on your way out, okay? But otherwise, David, thanks again for joining us on our show. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Our team is awesome at trying to respond back to you. Or maybe if you have future questions on future episodes, remember, David's a returning guest. I'm betting if I ring David's arm hard enough, we can bring him back on for some more tips and tricks that he might have to share with us. So check out David's podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next show of No Flipping Excuses. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Hey, go grab a copy of our brand new book. We'd love to put this in your hands. The Art of Flipping Deals. You could go grab your copy today at theflippingbook.com. Make sure you head on over to theflippingbook.com. We'd love to get this in your hands today and show you exactly how you can get free exclusive inbound leads in your business today. Make sure you head on over to theflippingbook.com. Take care. Bye.